Most people wake up and immediately check their phone. But what if the first thing you did each morning was the one thing that could actually change everything about your day? A morning prayer isn't just about asking for things. It's about positioning yourself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally before the world makes its demands on you. When you pray in the morning, you're setting an intention. You're declaring what matters. You're inviting strength into your life before you need it. Think about it this way. Athletes visualize their performance before competition. They don't just show up and hope for the best. They prepare their minds. Prayer is your mental preparation for life. It's your competitive edge. Except what you're competing against isn't another person. It's chaos, stress, anxiety, and 1,000 small ways the day tries to pull you away from what actually matters. The science backs this up too. Studies show that people who practice morning meditation or prayer have lower cortisol levels throughout the day. That's the stress hormone. They make better decisions. They're more resilient. They recover faster from setbacks. And they experience more peace, even when everything around them is falling apart. But here's what most people get wrong about morning prayer. They think it has to be long. They think it has to be perfect. They think they need to use special words or follow some rigid formula, so they never start. The barrier to entry feels too high. The truth is simpler. A powerful morning prayer can take 3 minutes. 5 minutes if you want to go deeper. And it doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be honest. It needs to come from what you actually need on that particular day. The prayer that changes your life is the one you actually do. Not the one you wish you were doing. Not the one you feel guilty for not doing. The one you actually pray. Over the next few sections, we're going to walk through a complete morning prayer structure that covers protection, strength, clarity, and purpose. This isn't a script you have to memorize. Think of it as a framework, a way of organizing your thoughts and your requests, so that when you pray, you're hitting the things that actually matter. We'll start with protection. Not just physical protection, though that matters, but protection of your mind, your energy, your focus, and your peace. Because the moment you wake up, there are things competing for all of those. Then we'll move into strength. The kind of strength that doesn't come from your own willpower, because willpower runs out. The kind that sustains you through a full day of decisions and challenges. After that comes clarity. Most people don't pray for clarity, but they should. You can have protection and strength, and still move in the wrong direction if you can't see clearly. Clarity is about knowing what to say yes to, and what to say no to. It's about seeing your day with wisdom, instead of just reacting to whatever comes at you. Finally, we'll touch on purpose. Because even a protected, strong, clear day is hollow if it's not pointed towards something that matters. Purpose is what makes the other 3 things actually meaningful. By the time you finish this video, you'll have a complete prayer you can use tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and every morning after that. You won't need to come back to this video. You'll own it. You'll make it yours. But first, let's talk about protection. Protection isn't just about physical safety. It's about guarding your mind against the noise that pulls you away from what matters. Every single day, you're bombarded with messages designed to make you anxious, inadequate, insufficient. Your phone alone delivers thousands of micro-doses of comparison before breakfast. A morning prayer for protection creates a boundary. It's like putting on armor before you step into the world. And the thing about armor is that it has to go on first. You can't put it on after you've already been hit. When you pray for protection, you're asking for clarity. You're asking to see through the fog of what everyone else thinks you should want, and actually recognize what you want. You're asking to stay anchored to your values when circumstances try to pull you away from them. Think about what happens when you don't have that protection. You wake up, you check your phone, and suddenly you're in someone else's narrative. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. You're doubting decisions you made yesterday. You're anxious about things that haven't even happened yet. By 9 a.m., you're depleted. Now imagine the opposite. You wake up and you pray. You ask for protection of your mind, your time, your attention. You ask for strength to say no to things that don't serve you. You ask for wisdom to recognize what's actually important from what just feels urgent. You ask for protection against your own worst impulses, the ones that whisper that you're not enough, that you need to hustle harder, that you're behind. This is where strength comes in. Protection and strength are twins. You can't have one without the other. Strength isn't about being tough or never struggling. Strength is about having the capacity to stay true to yourself, even when it would be easier not to. It's about doing the hard thing because it's the right thing, not because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. When you pray for strength, you're not asking to become a different person. You're asking for access to the strength you already have. It's there. You've survived every difficult day you've ever faced. You've overcome obstacles you didn't think you could overcome. That strength is real. A morning prayer simply reconnects you to it. The combination of protection and strength creates something else. Resilience. You move through the day knowing that whatever comes, you've already chosen to stand on solid ground. You're not at the mercy of your circumstances, because you've already decided who you are and what you stand for. This is why the morning matters so much. The morning is when your mind is quietest, when you haven't yet been pulled in 100 different directions. It's the moment of leverage. What you do in those first 30 minutes shapes how you move through the rest of the day. And here's what most people get wrong. They think a morning prayer has to be long or complicated or use specific words. It doesn't. The most powerful prayers are the ones you actually pray, the ones you mean, the ones that come from what you actually need on that particular morning. That's what we're building toward. A prayer that's simple enough to remember, flexible enough to adapt to whatever you're facing, and powerful enough to actually change how you show up in your life. So here's what makes this different from generic prayers you might find online or in a book. When you speak words that match your actual situation, your brain doesn't just hear them. It processes them. It believes them. There's real neuroscience behind this. When you vocalize something specific to your life, you activate different neural pathways than when you just think about it passively. This is why people who pray the same rote prayer every morning sometimes report that it stops working. It becomes background noise. Your mind adapts to it. But when you customize, when you make it real, you're essentially rewiring how you approach that day. Let's talk about protection first, because that's what most people actually want when they pray. Protection doesn't mean nothing bad happens. That's not realistic, and frankly, it's not how life works. Real protection is different. It's about clarity when you're confused. It's about courage when you're afraid. It's about discernment so you don't make decisions you'll regret. It's about resilience, so when something does go wrong, you don't fall apart. A prayer for protection that actually works addresses these things specifically. Instead of asking for a shield against all harm, you're asking for the ability to recognize danger before it becomes a crisis. You're asking for wisdom in your choices. You're asking for the strength to handle whatever comes without losing yourself in the process. Strength works the same way. When people say they want strength, they usually mean emotional resilience. They mean the ability to keep going when they're tired. They mean confidence that they can handle their responsibilities. They mean not being overwhelmed by anxiety or doubt. So your morning prayer should address the specific areas where you actually feel weak. Maybe it's at work where you second guess yourself. Maybe it's in relationships where you struggle to speak up. Maybe it's with your kids where you lose patience. Maybe it's with your own thoughts where anxiety spirals into catastrophe. Name it. Be specific about where you need strength. The power of this approach is that you're not asking for a generic blessing. You're identifying the exact pressure points in your day, and you're setting an intention to show up differently in those moments. You're priming your mind to notice opportunities to respond with strength instead of react with fear. This is also why morning matters so much. Your mind is most malleable right after you wake up. You haven't yet been shaped by the news, by your inbox, by other people's demands and opinions. You have a window where you can set the tone before the world sets it for you. When you pray in that window, you're not fighting against a day that's already in motion. You're directing the momentum before it builds. You're choosing the lens through which you'll interpret everything that happens. You're deciding in advance that you'll look for strength instead of weakness. You'll look for protection instead of threat. The people who report real transformation from morning prayer aren't the ones who found the perfect words. They're the ones who committed to showing up consistently and adapting their prayer to what was actually true that day. Some days your prayer is 3 sentences. Some days it's longer. Some days it's the same as yesterday because you're facing the same challenge. Some days it's completely different because life shifted. That flexibility is what makes it sustainable. That specificity is what makes it powerful. That flexibility is what makes it sustainable. That specificity is what makes it powerful. Now here's what happens when you actually do this consistently. Your brain starts to rewire itself around protection and strength instead of fear and scarcity. This isn't mystical. This is neuroscience meeting spiritual practice. When you name the specific threats you're facing and ask for specific strength to meet them, you're activating your prefrontal cortex. You're moving out of reactive survival mode and into intentional response mode. The protection you're asking for isn't about nothing bad ever happening to you. That's not realistic, and deep down you know it. Real protection is different. It's the kind where you face the hard thing and you're not facing it alone. It's the kind where you make a mistake and you can recover from it instead of spiraling. It's the kind where someone disappoints you and it doesn't destroy your foundation. Strength works the same way. You're not asking to be invincible. You're asking for the kind of strength that lets you show up even when you're tired. The kind that lets you say no to things that don't serve you. The kind that lets you be honest about what you can't do instead of pretending and burning out. That's adult strength. That's the kind that actually changes your life. Here's what people miss about morning prayer. They think it's about getting everything right, getting the words perfect, having the right posture or the right location or the right amount of time. But the actual mechanism isn't any of that. The mechanism is consistency plus intention plus specificity. You show up. You say what you actually need. You do it again tomorrow. After 2 weeks of this, you'll notice something. You're calmer when chaos hits because you've already prayed about it. You're more aware of your own patterns because you've been naming them out loud. You're less reactive to other people because you've been anchoring yourself to something bigger than their moods or their opinions. After a month, it gets deeper. You start to notice that the things you were most anxious about either resolved themselves or turned out to be manageable. Not because you're magical, but because anxiety distorts reality. It makes everything look bigger and more dangerous than it actually is. When you pray about something specific, you're forcing yourself to look at it clearly. You're asking for help instead of just spinning in worry. This is why the prayer itself matters less than the practice. Whether you use words from a book or words from your own mouth, whether you pray to God or to the universe or to your own highest self, the transformation comes from the same place. You're deciding that your day doesn't just happen to you. You're deciding to be intentional about what you're carrying and what you're asking for help with. The protection and strength you're asking for are already available. You've always had access to them. The prayer doesn't create them. It opens the channel. It gets you out of your own way. It reminds you that you're not supposed to do this alone, whatever this is. That's the real shift. Not that your life becomes problem-free, but that you stop facing your problems as a solo operation. That changes everything. And here's what happens when you actually live that way. You start noticing things. Small things at first. A conversation that lands exactly when you need it. A door that opens when you weren't expecting one. A moment of clarity in the middle of confusion. These aren't coincidences. They're the byproduct of being aligned, of being open, of having asked for help and then actually received it. Your nervous system settles differently too. There's a physiological shift that happens when you genuinely believe you're not alone in carrying your load. Your cortisol drops. Your breathing steadies. You make better decisions because you're not operating from a place of pure survival panic. You're operating from a place of trust. And trust is the most practical tool you have. The morning prayer isn't magic in the sense that it rewrites reality overnight, but it is magic in the sense that it rewrites your relationship to reality. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start being a participant in your own life. You stop waiting for permission or for everything to be perfect before you move forward. You ask for protection and strength, and then you go do the work. You take the risk, you make the call. You show up differently because you've already surrendered the outcome. This is why consistency matters so much. Not because one prayer fixes everything, but because a daily practice rewires your default setting. After a week, after 2 weeks, after a month of meeting yourself in that quiet moment and asking for what you actually need, your baseline shifts. You carry yourself differently. People respond to you differently. Opportunities seem to find you more easily because you're actually looking for them instead of bracing against them. Start tomorrow morning. Don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect words. Your prayer doesn't need to be eloquent. It needs to be honest. Tell God or the universe, or whatever framework makes sense to you, what you need protection from. Name the specific fears. Ask for the specific strength. Be real about it. And then get up and live like you actually believe the answer is already on its way. Because that belief, that alignment, that's where everything changes. The life you want isn't waiting for you to become someone else. It's waiting for you to stop fighting so hard and start trusting a little more. Start tomorrow. That's your only job.